Agency not over, so let's play a game of free agent frenzy. J-Mac, looking back over the free agent period so far, what has been your favorite move?
I love a wide receiver position because I never could cover those guys. Devontae Adams going to the LA Rams. I just think about Matthew Stafford throwing him the ball with Sean McVay dialing it up, hearing how he recruited Adams to come there. You just absolutely love this pairing with these guys.
Neek, what has been the biggest head scratcher to you so far?
Well, that Kirk Cousins is still a Falcon. I guess we still have some time, but it'd be shocking to me that they don't use Kirk Cousins to get some more draft capital and then use that to make this team a little better in the coming season.
And then, Graziano, how about the next move you want to see? What hasn't happened yet that you would be forecasting?
Cowboys still need a receiver. How about Stefon Diggs to Dallas? I'm personally a big fan. I don't know if J-Mac is, of brothers playing on the same team. I think that's a lot of fun. Dallas needs a good number 2 behind CeeDee Lamb, and I think at this point in his career, Stefon Diggs would be an excellent addition to the Dallas Cowboys.
Graz, I always knew I liked you. That just is the perfect pairing. You get brothers on the same team, especially these guys on opposite sides of the ball, it's going to raise everybody's level of competition. I made Dev into the player he was in New England.
There you go. Just to ask you.
And, he always says that.
And fair enough. Stefon, and look, there's a lot of things about that move that would be good. They talked about going after Cooper Kupp. I don't know how seriously
they never got real serious about
That's
it.
what I mean. Yeah. They wanted the world to think they were going after Cooper Kupp, but they never spend the money that it would take to sign Cooper Kupp. And maybe, I don't know how expensive Stefon Diggs is, but they don't go after free agents that cost any real money.
No, they don't. If their deal is right, I think they'll look into that. I mean, they'll kick over every rock to find a number 2 wide receiver. But yeah, there's a line item on their budget with a number on it, and I'm sure they're pretty disciplined about not going over it.
Yeah, they've certainly shown that discipline in the last few years. J-Mac, I'm looking at this piece of paper that they gave me with the different takes that people have.
Yeah.
And it says on here that the move you want to see is the Steelers trading for Brock Purdy. And I just assume something's wrong with this piece of paper.
Hear me out, Greeny. Me and Evan Cohen were talking last week. All right, the situation at hand right now, they're waiting for Aaron Rodgers. Say Minnesota comes calling, Aaron Rodgers decides to go to Minnesota. Russell Wilson has been on a visit to the New York Giants and the Cleveland Browns. For whatever reason, the Browns go in and they sign Russell Wilson to a contract. Now, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you've already traded for DK Metcalf and gave him a big contract. You need to have somebody to throw the ball to him. We've talked about the 49ers figuring out whether this is a rebuild or they're still going for it. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, why not think about, hey, calling up the 49ers and John Lynch and saying, I don't know where you guys are at right now. If you think you got a chance, that Brock Purdy guy, you're unsure. Do you want to pay him? Is he the same guy? Give us a shot at him. We'll take him. We'll let him be able to distribute to all the weapons we have here in Pittsburgh.
If the 49ers aren't going to pay Brock Purdy, you think the Steelers are going to pay Brock Purdy? I mean, the 49ers give out money a lot more freely than Pittsburgh does. I mean, it's a fascinating idea. Like, the logic is sound. I just think underneath it, the Niners, I believe, intend to sign Brock Purdy and don't want to trade him. But it's a fun thing to think about.
And then one of the underlying ones, of course, in that is Aaron Rodgers making up his mind on what he's going to do. Dominique, what's the move you want to see coming up next?
I mean, you see it right there. Do something, Aaron Rodgers. Like, I feel like we've been talking about Aaron Rodgers going to every possible team, and I just want him to make a decision at some point, even if that decision is to retire. So I'm looking forward to Aaron Rodgers making a choice so then we can have something new to talk about as it pertains to Aaron Rodgers.
The only explanation that I have for why this is taking the time that it is taking is that he is continuing to hold out hope for a different situation, and Minnesota feels like the one that makes sense.
I think that's accurate. Now, the extent to which they end up interested is still kind of an unknown, but yeah, I think as long as there's any percent chance at all that that's out there, I think he prefers that situation to the Steelers or the Giants. I got to believe we'll know soon.
I mean, look, Minnesota's the place every quarterback would like to go.
And I guess what I start to wonder from a Minnesota perspective, what are they waiting on? If Aaron Rodgers is somebody they're interested in, he's there, go get him. If it's another backup quarterback that they want, it's not like there's going to be new players on the market.
Signing Aaron Rodgers would represent a dramatic departure from Minnesota's plan. They'd have to make other budget decisions, so there's things that go along with it.
All right, we'll keep a close eye on all of that. In the meantime, we get to the NBA coming up next. We've got good news and
Albert Breer is the one who first kind of framed it that Rodgers isn't, hoping to get phone calls. He's not in that 41-year-old situation that 41-year-old quarterbacks, if they exist, find themselves in, which is hoping to get a phone call to have a team invite them to try out for their squad. They want to continue playing. He's got a choice. The Steelers and the Giants both want him. And I guess they're waiting on pins and needles, I might imagine, because plan B is that next step is a Lulu. Sam Darnold's not an option. Daniel Jones is not an option. Those guys are off the table. Acquiring Geno Smith. Who knew? That's not an option because the Raiders beat everyone to that punch. So if Rodgers says no to somebody, then whoever gets that no, I guess, turns to Russell Wilson. And you heard from Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated yesterday saying the Steelers aren't particularly sold on running it back with Russ, letting Russ come back. And because there are some relationships in the building that still need to be solidified based on the way things ended last year.
The smelting didn't go up.
You know what? I was going to follow up on that with Albert, but he was choosing his words carefully enough to try and not to say what he was saying without saying the words that Russ rubbed people the wrong way over there. Because that is, as you know, a very third rail subject when it comes to Russell Wilson, is how he's perceived in the building by his own teammates or his own coaching staff. And we all know what the Broncos eventually thought of him with Sean Payton, making him the largest dead cap hit in the history of dead caps. So they're waiting on Rodgers in Pittsburgh. And they're waiting on Rodgers with the Giants. And as I mentioned yesterday, if I'm Rodgers, I want to go to the Steelers right now. But he apparently has that option, and he hasn't taken it yet. As of now, fewer than 4 hours till the new league year begins. And Kirk Cousins lurks in this whole scenario, depending on what the Falcons do with him. But Rodgers is letting people wait, or he's making his decision carefully, or he's mulling it over carefully, or he's asking for something that we don't know about. There's an iceberg. We only see the tip, and we assume there's an iceberg when Rodgers is involved, as we all know. And me saying yesterday that if I'm Rodgers, I want to go to the Steelers, and that if I'm the Steelers, I want Rodgers. I heard from Steeler fans.
Oh, boy.
Hearing you.
Uh-oh.
This could go.
Yeah, I know.
Hearing you.
Good or bad?
Well, a lot of it. We don't want them.
Okay.
You know, we're the Pittsburgh Steelers. We don't want them. Or that's not a very Steelers-like maneuver.
They're very caught up on that type.
Never say never, but never.
Yeah, but last year's maneuver wasn't either.
That's correct. Or, you know, trading a first for Minka Fitzpatrick in the middle of the season like they did a few years ago. That was very un-Steelers-like. Or paying a wide receiver $33 million without having a quarterback plan in place.
The old Steelers would never do that.
That's kind of nuts.
They just churn through wide receivers there.
So
Well, they're good at drafting them.
Those days are over.
Them, yeah.
The days of that are over. You still have a bridge to the past in terms of the same owners and the same coach. But right now, the way that things are currently set up, you need Aaron Rodgers to say yes. I mean, it's that simple. He had a $33 million a year wide receiver and no one to throw him the football. You know, I mean, that's what we call bass awkward. And
a conundrum, if you will.
to make that straightforward, you need... That's what the Jets needed. They needed an adult in the room. Certainly since the previous situation, one of them was Zach Wilson, and the other one is named Russell Wilson, didn't finish well, and apparently isn't an option to run it back with. It's the same scenario, which is probably why Steelers fans don't want to wrap their arms around it, because, you know, it's following a game plan the Jets once upon a time came up with, and you don't want to follow a Jets game plan. You just don't want to do it. You know, so I understand what Steelers fans are having issues with. And by the way, it wouldn't take long if this happens for the first drama to pop up. And as usual, it would have nothing to do with Rodgers and what he says or does. Because, I'd imagine he'd want to wear number 12. You know who once upon a time wore number 12 for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
The Blonde Bomber.
Is somebody who has, on Fox,
The Blonde Bomber.
said many things about Aaron Rodgers that were not complimentary. So I looked it up. The Steelers have 3 retired numbers. 12 is not one of them. So it wouldn't take long to find out Terry Bradshaw's thoughts on the matter. And so, but that's the stuff that we in the sports business, we crave. That sort of material.
How is Terry Bradshaw's number not retired?
Oh, the Steelers don't retire a lot of numbers.
Yeah, I know. It's Mean Joe Green.
I believe
Ernie Stoutner and Franco Harris.
Franco Harris.
Just happened.
Right. They don't retire a lot of numbers.
Yeah, that's odd.
All they do is just send people to the Hall of Fame. That's the way that they handle their immortality.
True.
You know what I mean? They just keep sending people to Canton.
Yeah.
So, Big Ben will be next in that regard.
Yep.
And so, listen, we're all waiting and see how it goes. But clock's ticking, and I'm sure everyone wants an answer because Plan B needs to be jumped on immediately.